And the British also had deployed muskets. And in the final analysis, that was a key advantage that the Patriot militia had over the British and the Loyalists. You know, the difference between a British redcoat and a Loyalist is the redcoat came over, as part of the British Army. The Loyalists were colonists who swore allegiance to King George. And they were issued these weapons, but they were muskets. Most of them were French Shirleyville or Brown Bess muskets. And they fired a lead ball as a knuckleball without any rotation. And of course that's a disadvantage to a rifle, because the name rifle is associated with the etching in the barrel called rifling. And what that rifling does, it is etched in such a way that when that lead ball or modern day bullet is fired, it's a spinning ordnance and can achieve significantly greater accuracy. So back in the day, these Patriot militia, they hunted. That was a source of food for them. Whether it was a rabbit scampering across the ground or a squirrel up in a tree, the deer, the bear, the buffalo. Yes, there were buffalo in this area. As a matter of fact, it's very likely I-75 follows what was once a buffalo trail. Most of the major roadways are just that. And after they were hunted and made extinct, well, those became footpaths, and those footpaths became dirt roads, and those dirt roads became paved roads. But anyway, it was a source of sustenance for these Patriot militia, and especially the frontiersmen that lived up in the high country. So when they went into battle against the British or the Loyalists, the Patriot militia had a distinctive advantage. They could hit a kill shot at over 100 yards. A musket, if you're lucky, was accurate at about 40 yards. And those men didn't practice accuracy. The way they learned to fight was to get into a line in an open field and just throw out a wall of lead. And the enemy did likewise. So both the British and the French, that was how they fought. That was their method. These good old boys living up in the frontier, they learned Indian tactics or guerrilla warfare. They would hide behind trees and rocks, reload, swing out, aim, and hit their mark, and do it all over again to these men that were in an exposed field. At Kings Mountain, there were over 1,100 of British Loyalists, as compared to 900 Patriot militia. 1 hour, 5 minutes later, only 28 of the Patriot militia paid the ultimate sacrifice, compared to 228 of the Loyalists. The answers, so I stopped asking it. But I used to ask the adult crowds, who can tell the story of where the Second Amendment phrase, a well-regulated militia, where did that come from? And after not receiving an answer to that, I stopped asking. And I've asked that question one-on-one to some of the most hardened NRA members, outdoorsmen, marksmen, people that have these medals for their shooting competitions. Do you know where well-regulated militia came from? And it almost always results in a stroking of the chin, and a tilting of the head, and a measure of, well, let me think about that. But they don't come up with the answer. And the answer is the Battle of Kings Mountain, especially. Now, there were some other skirmishes, victories against the British, but that was the main one, as told from the commander of the losing side, Sir Henry Clinton, who was quoted, and he wrote this after the surrender at Yorktown. Kings Mountain was the first link in a chain of evils that led to the total loss of the colonies. So, there you go. All right, well, I hope you're still copying, and I'm going to let you go before I put you to sleep. I'm bad about doing that. November 4, India Alpha Mike, it's been a real joy speaking to you. Gary, I hope that you've enjoyed it as much as I have. There is for IAM W4OVT 73, good night, and I hope to meet you again on the air and talk you out of one of those voice guide storage units there. Hi, back to you.
Yes, S4IAM, back to W4OVT. Copied everything. You may not be so fortunate. I might be down in the noise, but I definitely enjoy talking about this. I got one question. How did the Americans end up with rifle? I mean, how did we end up with better guns? Over.
I think your question is, how did the Patriot militia, how was it that they possessed the superior rifle as compared to the musket? Is that your question?
Well, Roger, that's my question. Over.
Well, I don't have the foggiest idea, which is not true. I enjoy saying I don't know. I don't know. Those are the three most powerful words or phrase in the English or any language. But in this case, I do know. Okay, so it harkens back to what I was saying. These men, they needed a gun in order to survive. They needed a gun that was accurate. And so they needed a rifle. And these rifles were produced locally. They did not rely on the British or the French. They had these guns made locally. And if you ever visit a 18th century graveyard, and if you ever see the inscription of G.S. on a headstone, that's not a military endorsement. The GS stands for gunsmith. So they were producing these guns. They were known, one of the most popular designs was the Deckard rifle. I've seen different spellings of that, but the conventional accepted spelling is D-E-C-K-E-R-T, Deckard. Some say Deckard with a D, that's incorrect. It's Deckard. The Deckard rifle, and its characteristic is easy to detect if you know what you're looking for. The stock of that rifle was blunt, meaning it was flat. The part of the rifle that would go into the shoulder was flat. As compared to the Kentucky long rifle, and that was one that Daniel Boone carried and many others, it had a curved stock that would wrap around the shoulder. And it was generally more mass-produced than the Deckard, but no less accurate. And each one of these rifles, the barrel was rifled, as I mentioned before, but they were all unique. There were no two barrels the same. Therefore, the men had to carry this small cup or spoon that would contain the precise amount of lead that they would then compress into the ball to perfectly fit. Well, I shouldn't say perfectly, but fit adequately so that it would not jam the barrel, or too small, and then you lose accuracy. So the ball had to be pretty close to not jam and to maintain its accuracy. So, yeah, that's the answer. They produced the guns within the colony. And next time we talk, I'll share with you the story about how the British almost had a rifle in the colonies called the Ferguson rifle, and how that relates to the commander of the forces, the Royalist forces on top of Kings Mountain. That was the one and the same Ferguson, Patrick Ferguson, and he was the one that issued the bravado threat that went into the frontier. Word spread of his threat. Ferguson said, "If you do not desist in your opposition, I will march my army, cross your mountains, hang your leaders, and lay waste your land with fire and sword." And those mostly Irish, Scots, and Welsh, a few Germans mixed in for temperament. Not exactly sure the vernacular of the day, but it was along the lines of the "Hail, you say." They had lived and escaped the thumb of British oppression, and they flocked out of those mountains. Men who never received any form of military training, had never fought side by side, and would never fight again. But on that glorious day, October 7, 1780, in 1 hour and 5 minutes, they delivered a blow that not only sealed the future of America, it derailed Great Britain's plans to conquer the world. And that's a fact that most tellers of the American Revolution leave out, was had already been with great success in battles and conquest around the world, and they were just getting started. The loss of the colonies was a significant setback for those ambitions. November 4, India Alpha Mike, W4 OVT. Let me let you go, Gary. Good night. We'll pick it up from here next time. 7-3.
Okay, Mike. We'll be free to you. Thanks for the information. Available QSO. And for IAM, clear.
Alrighty, let's see. Anybody else around W4 OVT? I need to let my puppy dog out, but I'll say hello before I do.
Kilo Charlie 1, November Yankee Charlie.
Hey, there is my friend Tim. Tim, sounding good there. Good evening. If you can hang on here, I'll be back in just about 2 shakes. Over.
Roger that. I'll be here.
Yeah, by the way, were you hearing Gary over in Chattanooga, Tennessee? Over.
No, I didn't hear him. I just heard you. But I was across the road. I know that voice.
Yeah. Old vicious tiger. OVT. I'll be back shortly.
Right back.
You're talking about the FedEx fiasco message. Is that the one?
Yeah, roger that.
Yeah, I haven't even looked tonight. Let me see. Don't think there's probably any change, but let's see. Refreshing the page. Nope. unbelievable. So, yeah, well, how long were you copying there? I was going down the history rabbit hole there with Gary in Tennessee. So, did you just come on frequency over? All right. Well, which microphone are you using? The 705 over?
Yeah, this is 705. I'm listening to some feedback or something to start buzzing. So, yeah, we'll listen about 3 or 4 minutes, and then start talking about the guys putting the ball in and have to trick up the hill and stuff like that. I kind of like all those pictures that you give us there in the net, and so that's what makes me good, or?
All right. Yeah, the band was really starting to change. Talking with Gary there, and some QSB going on. But yeah, I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you very well there. Are you using the XIT or are you right on 7195? Over.
Well, that's a quick start button is a little squirrely on this 705. I had it at 7195.05. Since I can hear you better. I didn't use the bit on it though.
Okay, so you're receiving 7195, but you're transmitting 7195.05. Is that right?
I've been listening on both 7505 and 7195.05.
Okay, yeah, usually I was 7195.02 the weekend that I ran that for all the nets. That's what Ron, W9PT, had suggested. And that is systemic to the Orion 6. They call it a oven oscillator. And that was very, very difficult to exactly zero beat it. So it just kind of puts a little helium effect on the voice if you don't adjust it. So you can, it can be adjusted, but it's pretty hard to narrow it down much more than where it is. So yeah, just set the XIT and set it and forget it. So very good. Alrighty. Yeah. So your little jumper plug should, I think it's set to arrive on Monday, I believe. QSL.
Yeah, QSL. It's coming on Monday. I had luckily the relay RCA cable that I used to go from the amplifier to the back to the Pentec. And it's just a double wire, so I just plugged in the other side and it worked fine. So I'm glad we figured that out. Here, the instructions were kind of vague. I mean, they said if it's not, you don't have a Pentec amplifier connected, you got a jumper. But then I can be assumed that it didn't have a Pentec at all. Even if you had a non-Pentec, you got a jumper. So I was going to run that by him before you did. And if this would be probably the problem. Then it was, and now, you know, I reach across country with this thing, so it's a nice radio. I can't get over it. Or?
Yeah, besides the Orion, it's my favorite. Although I may fall in love with this Delta too. I picked up, well, it's from the same ham, from Mr. Rago there. I just got it back yesterday. I'm trying out a new repair gentleman there. I think I told you about Blotto. So Blotto returned what was my original Paragon that I bought from the the factory that John, one of our members, KO4JHG, it was working wonderfully until a piece of aluminum foil that was insulating, it's almost like a little thin piece of coax that runs to the SO230 antenna connector. Whatever adhesive that they used at the factory, well, it lost its bond, and that foil dropped down on the local oscillator board and generated quite a short circuit. It even took out the matching 961 power supply, and those things are built like tanks. That is, by the way, the same power supply that was matched to your now Omni 6 option 3. The Omni 6 Plus, they came out with the 962 power supply, which you can use on the Paragon, Omni 5, Omni 6's, that whole series, that family. It started with the Omni 5, then there was the Paragon 2, the Omni 6, then they had the Omni 6 option 2, and then the radio you have is the Omni 3. Well, the Omni 6 Plus, they outsourced a couple of the boards there to a company called RKR. That would ultimately be one of the subsequent owners that purchased the assets of Tintec, and they had a lot of issues, a lot of quality control issues. So the Omni 6 Plus is kind of hit and miss. So the Omni 6 option 3 was the one to go for, and that 961 power supply. The only difference really, of course, those were linear supplies versus switching supplies. The more modern switching supplies, like the Samlex 1235 and others, are quite good. They don't suffer what are called birdies that can cause, unwanted artifact in the receive. But these linear supplies, like the Astrons, those big, heavy RS-30As and such, well, the Tintec supplies were all linear supplies, but they also had a couple of protection circuits that the radio, for lack of a better word, understands. And the power supply understands about the transmitter. That's why this Paragon failure was pretty interesting, that those circuits didn't protect. But that short came from the other direction, if you will, because those protection circuits are designed to prevent a unwanted spurious signal coming from the power supply to the transmitter, not the other way around. So, but anyway, Vlado